What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Nerds on the Run. I'm Andy. My co-host Ari is here today.
Hello.
And we thought after 2019 ended, we wanted to do kind of a rundown of some of the movie, TV stuff we were into, what we saw, some favorites, some letdowns, and everything in between. So, we got some quick and dirty lists we put together. Let's start in the movie area. Three movies we were really into this past year.
Yeah, I felt like 2019 was a great year if you like comic book movies, if you like dramas, if you like comedies. It was filled, jam-packed, and the shows were also incredible. Thank you, Andy, for letting me join in. Obviously, it's a little late, especially, we're here sitting on MLK Day and talking about movies that happened in 2019, but you know how it goes with the holidays. So my three favorite movies of the year, I would say number three, it's a movie that I really enjoyed. It really... I was expecting it to be good, but I was a little hesitant because of who the director was, and not because he doesn't have a good track record,
Sure.
but because he was involved with one of my least favorite Star Wars movies, and that is Bryan Johnson's Knives Out.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't see that, so let me know. What was? Why is that taking your number 3 spot?
Yeah, so no spoilers for the movie. It's almost like if you've watched the previews, you see and you think, oh, it's another whodunit type of thing. But no, it takes the genre and it kind of turns it on its head. And Chris Evans, you have Mr. All-American in this movie.
And he's kind of a potty mouth, kind of a
he's a potty mouth. He's
the
opposite of
right?
the opposite of Captain America. I really enjoyed the movie. I thought the character played by. The name escapes me right now. By
by Daniel Craig, right?
By Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
Was a little too much, so it kind of took a little bit of time to kind of get used to and accustomed to the accent. But then the acting, once that you get past that.
Was he doing American? What was he doing?
It was. I felt like it was a little bit of a cross between like that. Southern twang, molasses.
He was Georgian molasses from The Office.
The Office, but also a little bit of a British accent.
Oh, wow.
But the movie is enjoyable. I was entertained. The acting is terrific, so nice job. Mm-hmm. So that was my number 3 movie. The number 2 movie, in reality, should be the number 1 movie, just because the feat this movie had to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And obviously, you can probably just guess, it was Endgame.
Sure.
It had everything. Now, if you stop and think about things about the movie, you let your brain wonder, think logically, there are some flaws, especially when, again, no spoilers, but the feat...
You should have seen it by now, though.
Yeah. So, it's almost been a year. So if you haven't seen it by now, you should. But what I was saying is that the feat of having almost 20 Marvel movies and having them all...
Having the payoff, right?
The payoff,
right.
They delivered. Everyone is terrific in the movie. Some of the jokes with Fat Thor, again, that's a little bit of a spoiler, so I guess. But
there's going to be some spoilers. You know what? Let's just say now, any movie we mention, there's going to be at least light spoilers. We're not going to do plot points or anything, but.
So some of the jokes with Fat Thor don't land that well for me, but I think the movie overall is terrific. So kudos to Marvel and Kevin Feige and the Russo brothers for accomplishing a terrific, and obviously the box office, now Endgame being the king of the box office. The number 1 movie, when I saw the previews, I was a little... I hesitated just because of the themes. It's Jojo Rabbit. Taika Waititi's Jojo Rabbit. The movie is beautiful. If you don't know what the movie is about, it's about a young kid growing up in the Nazi youth. So that kind of, you think about that, you're like, okay, I don't want to touch that. But there are some terrific performances by Scarlett Johansson and Taika Waititi, who plays Hitler. But he plays Hitler from the perspective of
imaginary
Hitler. From the perspective of, I believe he's a 9-year-old kid, or maybe a little bit older.
Yeah.
So obviously Hitler is acting as if
how a kid would.
Yeah. But the movie, it's got a little bit of comedy. It's got a little bit of a history. It's really good. It's a feel good story. You're gonna cry. You're gonna laugh.
Yeah.
So I think they touched that they touched that subject
Right.
pretty well. So Andy, let's hear your favorite 3 movies.
So I would say for me, number 3 was Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I do like the historical fiction take that he's done with a couple other films, and this one fit nicely into that. I went into it not expecting much, and we did have a slightly longer discussion about that in another episode, so I won't repeat too much about that here, but I really like the take, and I really like what they did with just a lot, the kind of the love letter to Hollywood and sort of the 60s sort of sheen that movie had. So I was really into that one. For me, it's kind of similar to what you said. Endgame was my number 2 as well. It was really number 1 on my list for a long time, and I'm kind of giving an honorable mention to Spider-Man: Far From Home here. The Marvel movies take up my second slot from last year.
And then obviously, any year, you have Far From Home, you have Captain Marvel.
Right.
Those movies are usually top of the list, and both movies deliver.
Yeah, they really did. Of course, I'm really biased towards Spider-Man, so I was kind of tossing and turning between whether I was going to give my second spot to Endgame or Far From Home. It ultimately goes to Endgame because of a lot of the payoff, a lot of the tie-in that they were able to accomplish. But Far From Home, of course, is after all the Disney and all the Disney and Marvel drama, I'm glad to see we'll get to sort of have some follow-ups to where Far From Home left the story. And then my favorite also actually was Jojo Rabbit as well. I will give a honorable mention for that slot. I was going for the dramas between Jojo Rabbit and Little Women. I didn't want to let the primacy effect sort of rattle me because Little Women came out right at the end of the year, so it was one of the last movies I saw of the year. Yeah, in fact, it was the last movie I saw of the year. So initially I was going to give the spot to that just because it's really, really well done. Again, probably everyone's decades old. That story is very old, so most of us know the story already. I will say, though, kudos to that one for doing a little bit with some non-sequential storytelling, which made the plot points all the more interesting. But Jojo Rabbit, for all the reasons Ari said, really captures, and special actually shout out to Sam Rockwell's character in that movie, was a really interesting character that toes that moral line, that good people can be on the wrong side of history kind of idea.
And they take
really
a character which, when you start the movie, you're like, this character is going to be a little bit annoying, but then you see the character arc, and you see, obviously Sam Rockwell is such a terrific actor, but then you see his acting really take over, and you see everything they're doing. And Alfie Allen is terrific in the movie as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So love Jojo Rabbit. Couldn't say enough good things about it. I did see some interviews with Taika Waititi going around, and people were always asking, how did he pitch that movie? How did he get a studio to buy in that movie? And he said he didn't even bother pitching it. He just wrote the script, and then sent it to people, and it's the work is of a quality that speaks for itself, and he knew that to get the project made. So.
Andy, tell us a little bit about your pleasant surprise of the year.
My pleasant surprise of the year, truly, I'm going to give an honorable mention to Star Wars, because even though we'll get in a little bit more into some of the disappointment with that, and we could probably do a whole episode on the pros and cons of that movie, I think that I was so shaken by episode 8 that I didn't expect there to be many moments to like about it, but I did like some things about it. But ultimately, and I saw it on a plane, so like the most remedial viewing of a movie, and I still ended up really liking it, was Shazam. I had totally written off. I saw it much after its release. I had been so disappointed and thwarted by so many things that DC had done that I had kind of just said, well, despite really liking Zach Levi, despite really thinking that the movie had the makings of something good, I didn't see it in theaters. I kind of started thinking I have to vote with my dollars, and the only way the DC ship is going to right itself is if people just give up on them completely, so they have to clean house. But I'm glad I actually did end up seeing it, because similar to, I don't want to over-compare, I know a lot of comparisons have been made to Guardians of the Galaxy, but I'll just say similar to some of the tonal things that the movie does, that it just kind of aims to tell one insular story. It is a part of a larger universe, but the comedy beats and the character drive in the movie, are what really made that one for me. So
Yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised by Shazam. I actually saw it in theaters. Two things. I'm a big DC fan. Not so much of a Shazam character fan, but I'm also a huge fan of Zachary Levi. I think he's the epitome of a nerd. I think a lot
From
of
his
us
Chuck days,
from
right?
his Chuck days, having to buy a lot of Subway sandwiches for Chuck to survive.
he's
the
also
third
my
season.
favorite. He's my favorite Disney prince too, though.
He is a Disney prince, and he's a man who's walked among DC and Marvel. You know, he was in the first two Thor movies to be replaced in the third one, or I believe he was.
I think he
Anyways,
was just smoked. Yeah, he was in it for like a couple minutes. Yeah.
regardless, so yeah, very pleasantly surprised. The character the character arc in the movie is terrific. I think he's really good in that. The storyline, you're dealing with magic, and the story, it has those fantasy elements, but it's also a little dark. So if you are taking a kid to watch the movie, kind of be on the lookout for that.
Be ready to maybe explain a couple of grown-up things to it.
But I really enjoyed it. I'm really curious to see what they do, because this could be the vessel, not so much of like building a larger universe, but this could be a vessel to kind of building up some worlds. I know that they're talking about Black Adam with The Rock, and it'd be interesting to see Shazam and The Rock interacting, especially because Rock is a mountain. And
if anything, I think Shazam should be the thesis for not building. DC should stop trying to do their larger world stuff and tell those insular stories, build individual worlds, right? And then later, if they want to have tie-ins, that's why Endgame made both of our lists. It had all the payoff of what the foundations established, and DC has tried to reverse engineer that formula. Again, we could have a whole long episode about that.
Yeah, and this is a good transition for me, because like you said, Endgame had those payoffs that when you're watching the end of the movie, when you hear Cap to the left, or when you said I am, all those things, they go and they touch, especially they touch your heart, or they touch that nerd. Because you're emotionally invested, which brings me to my most disappointing movie, and that is The Rise of the Skywalker. And again, if you haven't seen it, maybe this is a tiny spoiler. At the end, when Poe Dameron is flying and he goes, "No one's coming," and then all of a sudden you hear
they have their own on their left moment,
on their left moment, but I feel like it's not earned.
Well, not only is it not earned, but there's things even from its own movie that they forgot to pay off.
Exactly,
So,
and
again, we could have a very long conversation about the letdowns of that, but there were so many things that were.
And for the record, when I saw it the first time, I came out of the movie theater and I said, you know what? I think critics are just big jerks, and and I don't understand why this movie kind of got torn down. The problem with the movie, it's not the movie, it's the trilogy, the last trilogy, the sequel trilogy, because. In my opinion, there's no vision.
It still manages to be better than the prequel trilogy that had vision, but it's really the actors and the performances are what save it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, Ray is terrific.
Daisy
Ridley's
and
Adam Driver are terrific.
Like,
everyone in the movie is really good. And then when we can talk about representation and some of the plot lines. But after seeing it a second time, my brain went to some places where I'm like, a lot of things don't connect.
Right. You have to explain away a lot. You have to assume a lot. Even it's been on record, there have been important sort of plot and story developments about some of the characters' backgrounds and some of the characters' trajectory that were cut from the movie. And important things happen on screen. We're told and not shown a lot of things, which is a big no-no in Hollywood. And the movie's guilty of a lot of
the thing that really concerns me is that from 2015, 5 years later, we didn't really see what we wanted to see. The Force Awakens really set the bar to what the movies were going to be, and each movie after that kept going lower and lower. So I hope with the new trilogies,
although I'll say I liked it better than Last Jedi still.
Yeah.
There are some parts of Last Jedi, and we've talked that to death, everybody has. But I still, after multiple viewings, have still kind of settled with that there were moments that I liked in it enough that that's why I gave it an honorable mention in my pleasant surprise. I had such low expectations for it because of Last Jedi, but still, it's guilty of everything that everyone says.
I like the world of Star Wars, and I hope that moving forward we can go a different way. I know there's rumors of the Knights of the Old Republic, so I'm excited to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, Ben Solo's arc wasn't so satisfying in some ways. There were definitely issues with every thread. All the issues touched every thread of the movie. But I liked the for somebody that likes the legacy continuity and some of the Jason Solo character from the old canon. I like that they borrowed the stuff that they did borrow for Ben's character. I did like so.
If I may do a sports analogy, it's like having a quarterback or a pitcher in their prime and not building a good team around it. Because we have Daisy Ridley and exactly. Adam Driver who are in their prime, especially Adam Driver right now.
Yeah.
And Daisy Ridley is a terrific actress. Both of them are in their prime, and I feel like their acting was terrific. So not to take anything. But like the movies, the plot really didn't do them any service. But right now we are living in the golden age of television, as many of you might have heard or seen.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about our top 3 favorite shows of 2019. And Andy, let's take it away.
Sure. So I was not. I was a busy man in 2019, so unfortunately my TV list ended up being fairly short. But the things that I really liked in 2019 started with later in the year, Rick and Morty. It was only 5 episodes. From some of you that have seen some of my comic reviews, I'm a big fan of that series. And what little we did get, I did like. So it's only the first half of one season that was released, and so that's why it's a little bit lower on my list. There's more story to tell there. But I think the episodes that they did release really got at the heart of what the show is about. There's stuff that made you uncomfortable. There's stuff that made you question, some of the characters. But there's also a lot to laugh at and lots to just, lots of outlandishness and things like that. So I wouldn't say it's my favorite season of Rick and Morty so far, but that's another story. But as far as TV that I did see in 2019,
do you have any other shows that you want to talk about?
Yeah. So my number 2 spot was The Good Place season 4. Again, that's also the first half of one season. The winter finale just resumed now in the new year here. But The Good Place is a really, really excellently written show. It's the same people behind the Parks and Recreation. So the characterization and the jokes, but also super cutie, sweetie stuff, that really tugs on the heartstrings too. So it plays both sides of that fence really well. Kristen Bell is just an outstanding lead in that show. So I love The Good Place. It's Parks and Recreation is one of my longstanding favorite comedies, and I'm glad that this builds upon that sort of comedic style pretty well. So that was my number 2 spot. And then actually, The Witcher was, again, I'm a little bit guilty on this one of primacy because I saw it so late in the year. But The Witcher was one of my favorite shows of last year. Like many people, I had some big letdowns, which we'll talk about our TV letdowns in a minute, with Game of Thrones. And The Witcher, while I don't like actually comparing them as much as most people do, because Witcher kind of occupies that high fantasy strata, whereas Game of Thrones kind of had more of that low fantasy, medieval. Obviously, there was a lot more fantastical elements by the end of the series, but Witcher really has some strong characters in it, and though it doesn't hold your hand and explain as much as I think it probably needs to for how it kind of throws you in the deep end of the world, it does have really strong characters and really different competing motivations that sort of bring a lot of interesting archetypes into contact with each other. So, I like Henry Cavill. Despite Henry Cavill's performance being kind of flat, it's not out of the nature of the character for those that are familiar. He is really I won't say a one-note character. If anything, there's a lot going on under the hood, and Henry Cavill, I think, does a good job of trying to convey a lot of emotion without a lot of dialogue. So it's a good character for sure.
So yeah, I'm gonna put The Witcher number 3. I didn't know much about it. I play video games, but a lot of the video games I play are sports video games. Right. So especially the genre of the RPG and the turn taking, I don't have the patience for them. But I've heard good things, and I know that since the show has come out, Witcher 3 is one of the top video games being played again. But like Andy said, I watched it over winter break. It was terrific. It was one of those shows because It balanced the fine line between holding your hand and throwing you in the deep end, kind of like Andy also mentioned.
Yeah. There's a lot of details you'll miss if you don't have the lore background from prior exposure to the media, but there's a lot of good character stuff that's entertaining enough, you know.
I'd like to go back and watch, kind of like I did with Game of Thrones when it first came out. There's a lot of characters. Kind of
Sure.
like to go back and see what I missed. But I really enjoyed Henry Cavill. I know that one of the biggest critiques for him was that the character's a little bit of a deadpan, but like apparently that's kind of the characterization from the video game and the book. So kudos for him. And I know he really wanted to play. I mean, he was begging to be part of this project, and he's a huge gamer and a big nerd as well. So I really like it, and the characters are terrific. It doesn't have the big budget of a Game of Thrones, so some of the effects are
some of the CG monsters really pop out. It does look like a TV show and not like a movie, but I knew what I was getting into.
But it also gives you that Lord of the Rings, like you're really in a medieval place, and you know it's like dark and it's gray and it's rainy and gloomy.
Right.
So you know, and then the times when you know they're walking through the plains and the mountains, you do see I mean, it's not New Zealand, so you don't see the beautiful landscape that you see in Lord of the Rings. But I think the show does a really good job. So I'm really excited for season 2. So I was very surprised by it, and I really enjoyed it. My second favorite show, and the next two go to HBO, is Chernobyl. Chernobyl was terrific. Talk about a show that is scary without the horror elements. You're talking about body horror. We're talking about real life. We're talking about history.
Things that actually happen. It's always scarier with something, a tragedy from the past.
I never thought I'd look forward each week to see what was next, because even though I knew the story of Chernobyl, growing up in Albania, kind of being part of that Eastern Bloc, I was familiar with it. You know, I'd kind of heard pieces and, you know, kind of putting them together. And as you get older, you get the Western perspective of things. So it was a good historical perspective, and the acting is terrific. And it kind of just talks about the human piece and the things that we do to the sacrifices and the way to help the fellow man, but also the things that we do to serve a higher power, if you will, but not spiritually, but
like governmentally,
and kind of being under that sphere.
Right.
And number one is Watchmen. Watchmen is my favorite graphic novel. So seeing what his name escapes me right now, the guy that directed Lost would do with it.
Oh yeah. David Lindelof.
David Lindelof.
Yeah.
Lindelof.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to disparage his name. Just kind of.
That's a mouthful. I get
it's a mouthful, but his last show, I want to say The Arrival, but it's not The Arrival.
Are you talking about movie, or are you talking about
his previous show on HBO?
The Leftovers.
The Leftovers was terrific.
That was one of my favorites. That's why I'm so mad I didn't have time to see Watchmen. I'm sure it would be on my list.
He stuck the landing with that, which with Lost, he didn't stick the landing. Watchmen is episodes 4, 5, and 6 are 3 of the best television episodes that I've ever seen in my life, and
it's 10 total. 10
I believe it's 9 episodes.
9, okay, gotcha.
Either 8 or 9. The show is terrific. The acting is terrific. It's one of those where I'm not gonna give any details, but some of the characters from the graphic novel are in it, and they play a big part in it. So if you are looking for like a Dr. Manhattan and a Rorschach, you'll see all the hits. Andy, you spoke about the disappointment. You mentioned it. It has to be, for me, it has to be Game of Thrones season 8.
Oh yeah.
It's Game of Thrones, as many Game of Thrones fans know, for the last 8 years has brought us into this world. It's built all these characters. We're all invested. But for the last 3 seasons, it's been them kind of gallivanting, and all of a sudden things that were taking 2 to 3 seasons were taking 1 episode.
Half an episode, yeah.